bright color, like the color yellow, even though it's not really the case, because light is every color, actually, scientifically speaking, according to the education system, textbooks, all throughout history. Light is every color. Every color is a form of light. They're interchangeable. And as such, it must actually be true that light is every single thing we see is a form of light. Well, if that's true, then we have a big problem for everyone in history. We have a big problem for all the scientists of the world, for every authority in the world, because guess what? If that's true, then they have contradicted their own claims and notions and ideas. They have come up with contradictory claims and notions about light, atoms, particles, and energy and temperature. Because, you see, the funny thing is, what they don't understand is that they are making equivocations that are too far-fetched in the name of science, and about light in regards to energy, and atoms and particles in regards to light. See, the problem is they understand what energy is. They understand what atoms and particles are, and they even understand what light is. However, they don't fully understand any of those things. They only partially understand those things. There's a very big difference between a partial understanding of something and a full understanding. And partial understanding means you understand some of what that thing is, but you don't understand everything that thing is. And a full understanding would be if you understood everything that thing is, rather than just only some stuff. And in this case, their problem is they understand that energy is everything that is physical, that is not a particle. But the funny thing is, they actually forget that that's true. Later on, at some point in their daily routine, they will also say to themselves that that is not true. They will say that the original statement is untrue. They will say that it's actually more likely that they... So, and then they start to have this schizoteer ramble where they start to say, no, we were wrong. I was wrong. Energy is actually, photons. They will start to say energy is actually light itself. It is actually all the things you see are forms of light. And energy is all of those things. Despite previously saying that energy is everything that is physical that is not a particle. Yet they say everything you see around you is a particle or is made of particles. So they're quite crazy because they think that everything we see is particles, but also think everything we see is energy. Because they say everything we see is light, and they say that all light is energy, and all energy is light. And so they're basically saying everything you see is all of the lights of the world in the universe, and they're saying all of those lights of that universe are forms of energy. And then they also say that all of those things happen to also be particles. So, which is stupid again. Because they say that particles cannot be energy. They say that particles are not energy. They say that energy is a property of particles and matter, but is not particles and matter themselves. They are correlated, they are linked, connected, but they're not the same thing. They reiterate this many times, whether you're talking Stephen Hawking's schizoteer ramblings, or you're talking Albert Einstein's E = mc². theory of relativity, etc. You have all these famous scientists, famous professors, famous authoritative figures throughout history, and celebrities. Well, the problem is they just fail to realize how much self-awareness they truly lack when it comes to science, because they're so self-absorbed, so greedy, so crazy, and so mentally ill. Okay, so literally, there you have it. This isn't the last you'll hear of me talking about this, of course, but that's, and here's some. Okay, so obviously I've given the claims and I've given the argument, okay, because I gave you spoken word that is referring to the equivocations they make. Now that's not really the, okay, I'll admit, merely saying that those things are true about what they're saying doesn't make it true that that's what they said. So that's why I'm going to show you that this is what they say, that those are the things they say. Not as if I haven't already done so, a million times on this channel for other arguments on this channel, my library of videos, but still, this must go on, obviously. We have an article here, what's everything made of? In the standard model of particle physics, we have that they bring up, and we have that, and we have that. Yeah, you can read this article if you want. It supports my arguments, so I'm using that as a reference. I'm not going to scroll through every single thing in the article, but I will show you how I will directly show you how these sources are actually supporting my claims, rather than just giving you a reference to them. So, photons or particles is what I looked up the other day. What do we have here? It says, photon is an elementary particle. What website? Wikipedia. Photon's a particle. Photon is a tiny particle. What is a photon? Fundamental particle of light. On this one, Symmetry Magazine. For photons, livescience.com. They say that. Yada, yada, yada. Million gazillion, bazillion other articles throughout history. Same thing. Books, magazines, whatever. So, photons are particles. Photons are energy. Are photons energy? Well, they seem to think that that photons are energy, because let's see what they have here. Photons are often described as energy packets. Photon contains energy that cannot be divided. Well, just because a photon carries energy does not mean that it is energy. And these articles are at least trying to say that photons carry energy. This article says that. Okay. Yeah. Photons are simply discrete packets of light energy. So you got to be careful with this, because it's kind of hard to say by their wording here is if they're really trying to say that photons are just packets of energy, or are they trying to say that they are energy itself, and the energy itself is a packet. I mean, they like to be very vague about this. So, yeah, I would say, if you're ever on your own time trying to figure something like this out, actually click on the articles and read about it. See, now here's the thing: I've already done my fair share of reading about these things on my own time. So I don't have to click on every article, or anybody who's actually educated on this stuff doesn't have to read every article for something they already know is true by reputable sources. Okay, so and photons are much more than pure energy. What does West Texas A&M University say? They actually say that photons are pure energy. Now here's the thing. The funny thing is also that if you don't believe me that they're saying that photons are energy, there's another way to know that that's what they actually think. And that's when you look up the fact they say that photons are massless. And because they say that mass is matter, and they say that matter is not energy, they're basically saying that photons, no part of a photon is matter, and so they are saying that it is energy. So they are trying to say that photon is energy because it has no matter or mass. And so they're saying photons are not matter because they're not mass either. But then they're also trying to say that they are particles, but that's funny because they say that particles are particles are mass and that particles are matter. So either they are trying to give a new definition. They are either trying. This can be explained as one of two things. The first thing is that they are just giving a different definition of particle, in which particle can mean two things. Particle can mean atoms and quarks and the like, the particles we can see, or they're trying to give or the second definition, which is what they could be trying to come up with on the fly, that particles can also mean, even by their own criteria, can mean something that is physical, that is energy, but is not an atom, quark, and is not at all anything that is within the scope of the particles you can see and that most people are more familiar with. So to really know, first of all, you have to choose a article that actually most people turn to, or most people would deem to be reputable. Like, let's see, it says, let's try this. This is a very popular website. It's a reputable website. And it's based off of centuries worth of. Most people know this website. It's based off of the education system, teachings about science. Okay, so it says a photon is a particle made up of electromagnetic waves. They have no mass. Like I said, they say they have no mass, no charge. Yet they still say they are a tiny packet of light energy. Now, if they are a packet, if a thing is a packet of something, some other thing, that does not mean that the packet is the thing that it contains within itself necessarily. But it's pretty ambiguous what they mean when they say that a photon is a tiny packet of light energy. Are they trying to say that the packet itself is light energy, or that the packet itself contains light energy? We know one thing's for sure. We're going to find out in this article what they really mean. It says a photon is a discrete packet of energy or matter. It's a quantum. So it's still too ambiguous just by saying that it's a packet of X, Y, or Z. Strangely, photons have properties of both particles and waves. They have momentum, blah, blah, blah. I'm a fast reader, so I'm going to skip to I already understand why I'm better off going to some other paragraph. It says photon definition. It carries energy proportional to its frequencies. So yeah, it's still ambiguous. So photon energy is the amount of energy carried by a single photon. So still ambiguous when it talks about photon energy, because if you read what it says here, it's basically not telling you if they actually think that photons are energy or if they're just saying that photons merely carry energy. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's find a different article. That one's not. That one's quite ambiguous. Photons are much more than pure energy. It says here, light is not pure energy. While it is true that light has no mass, the fact does not imply that light is pure energy. Light is composed of fundamental quantum objects called photons. So each object on this list contains several different properties. It behaves, mass, kinetic energy. Only two of several properties that a fundamental quantum object can carry. Saying light is pure energy would imply that light only carries a property of energy and no other properties, which is simply not true. So these are the properties of light, obviously, as is the properties of every physical thing that exists in the universe. It has to be obvious, energy is just one of many properties that photons carry. Okay. Okay, I'm taking a break to just find a really good example of why they think light is energy. And when I say they, again, I reiterate, I mean the education systems all throughout history is what I'm referring to. It says light is light energy, of course. They are saying light is energy, and look right here. Literally even the European Space Agency, modern day, says, you can click on the article, it says, in fact, visible light is a form of radiation which can be defined as an energy that travels in the form of electromagnetic waves. So radiation is energy, and they are saying that light is energy. So, and before you say that I don't know that this article is really saying that without sarcasm, trust me, I know, because most people can understand if the headline, when you do the search results on Google, if it's actually showing what would actually be said with sarcasm or not. It just has to do with good foreknowledge about institutions and organizations in the world, and what are they really likely to do? Are they likely to actually be sarcastic when making such a statement in an article at any point, at some given point in the article, or not really? So, but just for those who want to be schizoteer ramblers about it anyway, here you go. It literally says it right here. That's what they think. That's what the European Space Agency thinks. Again, going back to this. Light energy is a form of energy. It says it's a form of electromagnetic energy. This is a popular website because it's the top of the search results. As soon as you search for this, you get this top search result. It's very popular if you get it as a top search result because the Google search engine thinks that it's a very reputable website for the question. It's an algorithm. And what else? You have all these others you could choose from. When energy flows through space, it is called radiation. Carleton College, I don't know where that is, but they, in a college, thinks that, and if energy flows through space, it's radiation. They say that radiation is energy because they say energy flowing through space is radiation. So, not in every case, but they're saying that in some cases that's what it is. Energy is radiation. Well, if energy is radiation, then they're bound to make an argument for why energy would be light, because of the criteria of what light and radiation are. They both fit the category of it can be hard to tell which of the two would be energy, and which wouldn't. So anyway, what else do we have here? Going back to this article, does it really say that photons are energy, or do they just carry energy within them? Well, first of all, I just want to clarify that this article does already say that there is something called light energy. So now, is that trying to say that light itself is energy, or is it just trying to say that there's a certain kind of energy that is carried inside of light? We have to figure that out. Pay close attention to detail to what could really be said. You may think it's saying that light is energy just because it uses the word light energy, but that could just be saying that there's a kind of energy that's associated with light, but is not the light itself. What else we have? So. Well, this article is kind of too ambiguous as well. Well, like I said, let's not forget that they still do think that how do I say it? Photons have no mass, and so they think that they are not matter. So if a photon is light and light is not matter or mass, then it must be energy by their criteria. So they must be saying that just by that logic. So don't forget that. That's already the dead giveaway proof that what I'm saying is true. But like I said, I gave the study.com article, which we went over. Just was on this one. And what else? There's plenty of other articles. Let's see what else we have. Photons are particles, like I said. They are particles. And the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that photons absolutely are regarded as energy because they say they have no mass or matter. Here's the thing, though. See, here's the problem with scientists. They see the fact that photons don't have are massless, and that makes them assume that the photons must be like some kind of hybrid between particle and energy. Problem is, when they do that, it leads them to either say that that photons are energy, or say that photons are particles, or it leads them to say that to hold to both notions, even though those are contradictory notions. So, as far as I'm concerned, their criteria is just stupid. Like, I would say that photons are just particles and they're not energy at all. I would say that photons definitely contain energy within them, just as they would agree. But that does not mean that the photons themselves are energy. Yet, for some reason, they still go on to confuse the terminology unknowingly and at some point assume that photons are actually energy, regardless. Yeah, I mean, so really what we're after is, where did they say that, we already know that photons are particles. It's pretty obvious that that's what they say. I showed you the articles where they say that, and it's pretty common knowledge that it would be easier to see how a photon could be a particle than to see how it could be energy, or to understand how it could be energy, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I mean, photons they're just not energy. They still say they're energy, and so what else do we have? Well, I'll just take you back to this again one more time. This is the third time or fourth time I'm showing this within the span of this 25-minute run so far. They still think, even the European Space Agency somehow tricks themselves into thinking that light itself is a form of radiation, and that radiation is energy, and that energy is light. Even though they say that light is a particle, and they say that particles cannot be energy. So they're basically saying light particles cannot be radiation, and then later saying light particles are radiation. So there you have it. They are mentally ill. This stuff has been commonly taught in all education systems around the world for thousands of years, probably. So, obviously for centuries, at the very least. So, and well, regardless how long it's been taught, been taught for too long, and I hope this puts a stop to it. I hope this video will force people to realize the whole world has been mentally ill for the reasons I've said in this video, and for reasons I've said in many, many, many other videos on my channel so far. Yeah, this is not about why atoms. This is, like I said, I told you this video would not be about atoms versus temperature. I've already done enough talking about that. As if that didn't already prove that the world has been mentally ill. As if those videos didn't contain that proof. Well, here's more. Them literally, tricking themselves into thinking two opposite theories at the same time that are really critical to the education system. So, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's one more thing I can do here, and it's look up what is energy, and then look up what is light. And then we can see if they actually think that energy, if they actually were saying that light is energy, and not saying that light just contains energy in like a folder, so like a packet. So let me look it up. It says here in physics, according to the law of conservation of energy, it's that energy can be converted in form but not created or destroyed. So in the other forms of energy, as you see in the image, it says potential and kinetic. Yes, those are forms of energy, and they are physical things that are not particles, but are physical things. But they still just trick themselves into thinking that light, photons are energy anyway. It's ridiculous. And they'd have to be extremely mentally ill to say such things and not notice, and have someone like me notice when they don't, especially with the ridiculous amounts of centuries of history and advantages they've had at their disposal. What else? It seems like nothing's enough for these wild animals. And what do we have here? Another article, and here was it say two. One of them that says the conversation here says Wondrium Daily. Is light a wave or a particle? When they say wave, they mean energy. When they say particle, like stuff like atoms, the particles you can see, the physical things you can see are particles, and waves are the physical things you cannot see. And it's pretty funny because I think photons actually are matter. I think light actually is matter, and I think that it is not energy. But according to this article, I'm wrong. They say that photons are particles, but they're not matter. So, yeah, I think that what they do is they give a new definition to particle. I think that in science, in the system, the education system, they've been more than willing to use two elusive definitions of particle that most people, a lot of people have overlooked and get confused by. Like I said earlier, one, the particles you can see, and the other, the particles you cannot see. So, funnily enough, according to this, a particle is a minute portion of matter. Now, keep in mind, just because it doesn't say that particles are physical things that are not matter, doesn't mean that it's saying that, doesn't mean it's excluding that as a possibility. So this is just one source. So it says in math, a hypothetical object having mass but no physical size. But it is saying something. Considering, you would think they would put that definition there if they really thought it was true. But all things considered, maybe not. What is a particle? So the particle, let's see if they think that particles can be something other than just the ones we see. Can they be the energies that we interact with? According to Wikipedia. Okay. Yeah, they're just talking about elementary particles. Yep. They don't think that particles can be. They don't think that particles in physics or science, in any of the physical sciences, can be, energy. This Wikipedia article does not think so. Now, a lot of people have a problem with Wikipedia, of course. I happen to think it's a very, very reputable source of information, but not everybody does. So let's try something else. In the broadest sense, particles are physical things that we can count. Symmetry magazine, let's see what it says. Okay, so it says, in broadest sense, particles are physical things that we can count. Well, you can count something that is not something you can see. We can count energy, but we don't see it. So it doesn't exclude that right here, but it might later. Anyway, we'll see. It's not just matter. Light is also made of particles. Most of the time, says it's not just matter. Light is also made of particles called photons. So it doesn't really exclude the possibility that there could be two different definitions of particles. So particle fields forever. Let's see. Now, I would already say that if they do use those two definitions, they're really throwing people off because they're being too vague about it. To which I would say, for them to even do that, they'd have to be mentally ill, because the thought process behind being willing to give out such vague terminology regarding such critical and important stuff to the education system is something only a truly insane mind would come up with, a diabolical, mentally ill mind would come up with. For countless reasons I've gone over in many old videos, but moving on. I have not truly proven within this article we're on here right now, that this article says that um, light must be the particles that we can see. Well, it does say light is a particle that we can see, but does it say that light is energy? So we're going to find out. They can't, but they, let's see. Okay. Yeah. Waves are the best metaphor to understand particles, field, electrons, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so yeah, this isn't very helpful. It's too vague. Remember, the original question is, what is a particle? Do they think that particles are energy? We have newscientist.com. We have Quanta magazine. So I don't know about this. Let's see. We have the Particle Engineering Research Center. Seems reputable. Okay. Here we define a particle as a small discrete quantity of matter that has an interface with the surrounding environment. So they don't say anything about particles being able to be energy in that introduction. That's a red flag, since other articles I've shown you literally outright claim that energy is a form of particle. It's a kind of particle. It says particles are indeed everywhere, from our kitchens to the remotest parts of our world. So they're actually trying to say that particles are everywhere. So they're basically saying everywhere is some kind of particle. That is kind of, that could leave the possibility that they actually are trying to say that energy is a kind of particle, but they never really explain if that's what they mean, because they never really use the word energy anywhere in this article, honestly. So I don't know about this one either. Let's just go back to the question on Google of, hold on, let's see what this says, study.com. Oh wait, no, it says right here, study.com. A particle is a small, yeah, let's see what it says. Particle is a small discrete point-like piece of matter or energy. So this article thinks that particles can be energy. And yet we have a funny thing here. What does it say? I don't know who this is. Professor. This guy, whatever this is, this person at least wants us to think that it's a professor, it seems. And is this what they actually said? That particles are not energy? Let's see. Matter and energy, a false dichotomy. Maybe you can read that one. Yeah, they try to dance around this one. Let's see. Let's see what else we can find. Hey, first of all, I mistyped that. Let me... Yeah, this is... My internet is bad right now, so it's scrappy, obviously. I don't know why it's... Yeah, see, look at this. I don't know why it's doing this, but I clicked on this one. It says letstalkscience.com. It says all matter is made of tiny particles. Yet people trust this website, Let's Talk Science. Not all matter is made of tiny particles. Well, okay, all matter is made of tiny particles. So they at least understand that much. So here's some more clarification. So all matter is the stuff that we see. All the physical things we see is matter. So those are all particles. And when they say matter there, they could be using that definition of matter. But what if they say that all matter, not all matter is what if at one point they said that not all matter is particles? Because I think they're saying that some matter is energy. And if they say that some matter is energy, but this article says all matter is particles, then we have another proof that there could be big institutions and organizations trusted for a false dichotomy by many people, many ordinary people. What else we have? But just to clarify, I think the best way to reform the question is, are all particles matter? Not are particles matter. Are all particles matter? Because if they think that all particles are matter, but they also think that not all particles are matter because they think that some matter is, they think that some particles are energy, then we have a problem. But look at this top one. It says particles aren't always matter. And it's true. There are some definitions of particle where particles don't have to be matter. Like energy can be particles. Energy can be made of particles. Okay, so what else we got? Yeah, what page is that? All right, what do we have here? PBS.org says, on the most basic level, the equation of E equals mc squared is trying to say that energy and mass are different forms of the same thing. That is ridiculous, because mass is matter, and matter is the particles you see. So how can the particles you see be energy when they say that's not true? Unless they're trying to say something different here, they say they are different forms of the same thing. Well, maybe they're saying they're different forms of physical. Maybe they're different forms of particle. And particle can be either matter or it can be energy. I hope that's what they're saying. Let's all hope. What else do we have? Yeah, I mean, I'm still stuck on the fact that the people don't think that photons are matter, since they clearly are matter, and I've given proof that photons are matter several times. Even before this video, where I was showing that if you take a particle and you vibrate it fast enough, its color and its temperature changes, and it becomes a photon. Turns into a photon, which is still a form of matter, because matter is all the particles you can see, and we can see photons, and they are particles. So why do they think they are not matter? It makes no sense. But so not only does that show they're wrong, but also the equation, Einstein's formula, is also wrong, because it says that energy, it's either saying that energy is created by matter I mean, sorry, either saying that energy is created by matter or mass going at the speed of light, or it's trying to say that energy is matter or mass. I don't. I think most people would agree that it's probably not trying to say that energy is matter, but rather trying to say that energy is created by matter. Energy is not created by matter. Funny thing. Um, Not literally created in the way God creates things. It it's more like it is brought into existence because of matter being used certain ways, but that doesn't mean it's creating the energy. Um, Now, I hope maybe that what they're trying to say here is that energy doesn't literally get created by matter the same way that God creates creation. I think that when they say create, in that instance, they're trying to say it's a different definition of the word create there. I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that that's what's being said. Either way, the fact that they leave it to be that vague speaks volumes about the mental health of the ones leaving it to be that vague, and which obviously speaks poorly of their mental health, and I would say just implies that they're mentally ill. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think energy is. I don't think that energy is matter. I think most people understand that energy is not matter in the traditional meaning of the word matter. I think most people understand that energy is a property of matter, and I think that most people understand that energy can be a particle, and that energy is made of particles, certain kinds of particles, but not the same kinds of particles that matter is made of. So I hope that. Well, I wouldn't say. I'm not gonna. I think it's far fetched to say that most people understand that. I really don't think most people understand that. I think most people um, aren't necessarily deep enough into science. I don't think all people are deeply enough into science to understand that, but yeah, I think there's plenty of people who do not know that that's true, who have passed high school, who have been through college, or at least graduated high school, who still do not know that. And there's plenty of people in the world who just do not understand what uh, what that stuff is. I mean, I'm not saying they can't learn. I'm not saying average people don't have. I'm not saying that there's a lot of that nobody can learn amongst the kinds of people I was talking about or understand it. But yeah, um, I think there's a handful of people, normal people throughout history, a large percentage, and I think there's been plenty of normal, average people in history who really had a hard time understanding how it could be true that energy can be a certain kind of particle. I mean, the very fact that people have struggled with science throughout the ages is already implying what I'm saying was true. They probably have been mentally ill for things to escalate in such catastrophic ways. But anyway, that's not that wasn't really the whole point of the video that I've done here. Like I said, honestly, there is um, there is a law within science a famous law that I've talked about and that most people know that says, according to science, energy and matter can't be created or destroyed, only reused. Well, if that's really true, then why does E equals mc squared say that energy is created by matter? You know, it's pretty stupid. Because if energy and matter can't be created or destroyed, but E equals mc squared says that energy and matter are created through each other, then what do you make of that? Unless they are the ones, people who believe in E equals mc squared are delusional or delirious, unless of course, like I said, it's not saying that those things are created, but just that they are brought forth, or that energy and matter are brought forth through their interactions. But how do you bring forth energy and matter through the interactions of them alone, unless they are actually being created in a way beyond logic that most people think is not is not possible? If you ask them, is magic possible or something, or is things beyond logic possible, they'd say no. But then if you said E equals mc squared, they'd say yes. So it's pretty ironic, because the whole theory of E equals mc squared has to assert that matter and energy interact, and then one or both of them are like manifested into existence, like by miraculous means, which is magic. So it's like, because they wouldn't be there. It's basically saying when there is no energy, at first there's no energy, but then later energy appears magically. Is basically what it's saying. So yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it just doesn't add up. It just can't add up, because they're contradicting too many of their claims. And like I said, this isn't the only contradiction that I pointed out. It's also the fact that they don't think that photons, they don't think of photons as being, matter, even though photons are matter. I gave the evidence that photons are matter before, but I'll give some more proof that photons are matter. I'll give the proof in this video right after I finish up what I was just saying about how E equals mc squared does not make sense according to people's logic, yet they still trust in it anyway. Okay, so here's the funny thing. It says, okay, so here's the funny thing, okay? I had been originally arguing that E equals mc squared is absurd, because it's saying that, because I was saying, my interpretation of it was that it was trying to say that energy is created, in terms of being created the way God creates things. It's actually only saying that energy is created in a way of creation where it's not the way God creates things, but it's just summoned or brought forth. You know, there's a definition of create that says, that's basically just, all it takes for it to be created is just be brought forth or summoned. It doesn't have to be brought into begin to exist miraculously, like magic. Well, the funny thing is, there's still a problem, a huge problem, with E equals mc squared anyway, that debunks it. And it's the fact that it says that, yes, it says energy is neither created nor destroyed, but did you know that there's Albert Einstein still, and all these people in the whole world, has still failed to realize one real critical issue with E equals mc squared, and that's that it says that energy changes from one form of energy into another form of energy. Which is just actually not true. The energy does not change from one form of energy into another form of energy. That's actually impossible. You can't have, you can't have one form of energy turn into another form of energy. According to the laws of logic, that's not possible. So, and according to people's logic, that shouldn't be possible. But people have overlooked that about their own opinions. Because here's the thing. You can't, let's say you have kinetic energy or chemical, let's just take a look at the images, okay? My gosh. It's so hard to give examples without images, because when I've done so before on this channel, people have just rejected it. They always need the help of an image. Okay, so literally, like it says, like the arrows indicate, like it's converted energy. The energy forms become different kinds of energy. They don't. It's trying to say that energy is not being created or destroyed. That is absurd, because how can chemical energy turn into motion energy? Like, it doesn't turn into motion energy. I guess if that makes sense. Because think of it like this: motion energy is not chemical energy. And if they are never the same kind of energy, and if they are never the same thing, then how can chemical energy become something that it is not? It's like saying I can become something that I can never be. It doesn't make sense. I can't become something that I'm not. Now, don't get me wrong. I can make an argument for how particles can become different kinds of particles. Like a slow particle can become a fast particle. No question about that. But to say that chemical energy can become motion energy, or to say that radiant energy, for electrical energy, can become thermal energy, is just false. For example, because energy, the different types of energy are not the same thing. If you have a slow particle and a fast particle, they're the same thing, just in different forms. But if you had two different kinds of energy, they're not the same thing in different forms. They're just different things that happen to fit in the category of energy. Electrical energy, I'll give a better example. Let's talk about heat energy. Heat energy is something that can be felt. It's a feeling. But did you realize that motion energy is not heat energy? And you cannot feel motion energy, but you can feel heat energy. So one can be felt and the other could not. So how can a feeling become something that isn't a feeling? It doesn't make any sense. Feelings can't become non-feelings while still being feelings at the same time. It makes no sense. A feeling can't be a feeling and be a non-feeling at the same time. So that's that. How do I put it? Heat energy and cold energy. Heat energy is not cold energy. Someone might say heat energy becomes cold energy. That's not true. That's not true, because heat energy does not become cold energy. There's just a correlation between heat energy and cold energy. First, the energy that you would feel would be heat energy, and then seconds later, you'd be feeling cold energy where you were feeling the heat energy. That doesn't mean that the heat energy became the cold energy. It just means that you went from feeling heat energy to feeling cold energy. That doesn't mean that the heat became cold. It just means that the heat was replaced by cold. Okay. I'll give another example. There's two people standing in a room. There's two people standing on a stage performing at a play. We wouldn't say the two people are the same person at any point, just because one is a backup for the original role. Like one of the guys is actually the original role, and the other is just a backup in case the original guy gets injured, is absent, or is sick. Then they need a backup. We wouldn't say they're the same people just because one is a backup that happens to be used later instead of the original. We would just say the original was replaced. It's the same logic with heat and cold. Heat energy is not cold energy just because heat energy is replaced by cold energy. Heat energy So therefore, heat energy does not become cold energy. It's just replaced by the cold energy. So that's why the heat energy appears to have transformed into cold energy. It did not transform into cold energy. It just was replaced by it. Besides, if heat energy was able to become cold energy, how would it become cold energy? How can hot become cold? It just can't, because hot isn't cold, and according to the laws of logic, a thing cannot become its opposite, is another way of describing it, according to the laws of logic. But what else? I mean, just think about it. Heat itself doesn't have anything to it to where it can become something. It can become something like cold. Sure, it can become certain things, but it cannot become cold itself. They're separate but correlated, but they're not the same thing. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Heat can't do anything other than be heat, which is why heat cannot become cold. And cold cannot do anything other than just be the cold that it is. So it cannot become heat. So that's why heat cannot become cold. That's why different forms of energy cannot become other forms of energy. Even though E equals mc squared says that's not true, still says that energy can become, still says that, those things can become, all those forms of energy can become different forms of energy. It's just not true, though. Obviously, if what I was saying is true. I'll give one more example. Let's say that there was heat energy. There was just some heat energy floating around. Well, all it would do is just be heat energy. And it would be, it would just be this feeling that is the feeling of something moving. It would just be these particles that are moving really fast. Well, if that's what heat is if it's just energy particles moving really fast, then how is energy particles moving really fast going to magically turn into energy particles moving really slow? Basically, what I'm trying to say is energy particles moving really fast wouldn't be energy particles that are moving really slow, which is what cold energy would be. And not only that, but there's no way for energy particles moving really fast to become energy particles moving really slow. Because a thing just can't be its opposite. And the very fact that a thing can't be its opposite means that a thing cannot become its opposite. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I fail to see how E equals mc squared holds up in that regard. I mean, I know it holds up as far as its arguments about how energy can come as a product of, or could be created by a certain definition of created, but not by all definitions of created, by certain physical processes with matter and particles, but it's not really the point. What I'm trying to say here is there's still an absurdity to E equals mc squared. There's still a flaw in its reasoning in the argument, because it still fails to address the explanation, it tries to give an ultimatum explanation for physics, but fails to give the true ultimatum explanation for physics when it comes down to the root of the matter, which is different kinds of energy. Because the mystery is what is creating or causing energy? What's the ultimatum? And the different kinds of energy. So, but it fails to truly answer this question. Like, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, I'll use this image too. U.S. Energy Information Administration. You have chemical energy and you have motion energy. Think about it. Think about the cold energy and not cold. Think about hot energy and cold energy. Like I said, it is true that the cold energy I mean, it is true that the hot energy is actually made of energy particles, because energy is made of particles, not matter particles, but a different kind of particles, as we've gone over. And so, obviously, that means that energy particles that are hot are moving really fast, floating in a room. They'd be moving really fast, and that's all they'd be doing. But none of doing that isn't going to make the doing that, vibrating really fast in a room. It's not going to do anything other than vibrate really fast in a room. And so, because it can't do anything other than that, the act of moving really fast cannot become the act of moving really slow. Because if we said otherwise, we'd be saying that moving really fast is moving really slow, when that's not really true. Because if moving really fast could become moving really slow, it would become that thing. And so then you'd have an example of a thing becoming its opposite, but it's simply impossible for a thing to become its opposite, seeing as a thing cannot be its opposite while it is itself. So it's simply impossible for different types of energy to become, for energy types to be converted into other forms of energy. And the key word is they really do use the word convert. Convert implies become or transform into. It even says right here, energy transformations. Now, maybe you can make an argument that that's not exactly what they're saying. Maybe you can make an argument that what they're really trying to say is that energy types don't become different energy types. They just coincide with each other. And something along the lines of that they don't really become different types of energy. It's just that X, Y, or Z, and eventually there's what appears as a different kind of energy. But that's not heavily implied. What's more heavily implied is that they actually think that energy can be converted in form, which I just think is baloney. I don't think that a thing can become its opposite. I think things are just replaced by their opposites, but they don't become them. The same way I don't think that I don't even think that fast moving atoms really necessarily become slow moving atoms in a certain sense. I mean, I think that fast moving atoms, if you slow them down, then yeah, the atom itself has become. The thing we're inspecting is the atom itself, not the property, which is its speed, fast or slow. And so the atom itself can be fast or slow. But can energy be fast or slow? Yes, it can be fast or slow, but energy in and of itself has no base form. That's the problem. If energy doesn't have a base form, then how can it switch between different forms? That's why there is no base form of energy that switches between all of these different forms of energy. There's just different forms of energy and that's all. Because there can't be a base form of energy. There can't be pure energy, is basically what I'm saying. There's just these kinds of forms of energy. And so, since there's no such thing as pure energy or base energy, this simply can't be true. Energy can't be converted into different forms that we see here. It must be something else. It must be that there's just these different forms of energy without them changing into each other. So, that debunks the notion that energy, that debunks E equals mc squared, despite countless neurotypicals in history clinging to the notion that E equals mc squared, education systems teaching it. Neurotypicals have taught many times in history that somehow the bullshit lie that neurotypicals cannot and have not been mentally ill, even though that's clearly false. What I'm saying is true. And I'm not just targeting neurotypicals, of course. There's a neurodivergent community all throughout history as well, who clearly are more easily diagnosable as mentally ill. So they're no exceptions either. So yeah, energy is not converted in form because for a thing to be converted in form, it has to have a base. It has to have a base form to be converted into different forms. But energy can't have a base form because there's no such thing as pure energy. So it's just false. And that's that. Now moving on to the other thing to cover here. So now that I've debunked E equals MC squared again, even though I've done that, I think, before at some point. I might have done that at some point before on this channel. It's been a while. I might have not, but either way, this is a better explanation than anything I could have possibly given before, that I might have given before debunking E equals MC squared. Moving on to my other theory, groundbreaking theory, which again is not going to be atoms versus temperature. I've already done that. I've already covered that on my channel. But a different theory, that photons are actually they are matter. Even though they are particles, they are matter, and they are not energy. Even though they are referred to as energy, which is, not true. They, like I said, I've shown that as well in this video. I showed a lot of the different things in this video that are groundbreaking in the name of science. They literally try to claim that particles are energy, which is not true. And not only that, but that photons are energy, which is not true. Energy is particles, I agree with that, but I wouldn't say photons are energy by any means, but they still think so. And they also are wrong to say that photons are not matter. Photons are definitely matter. And so I'm going to show my final bit of proof that photons are matter and that photons are not energy. And then I'll be done with this long, very, very long video. Again, 1 Dream daily. I showed this earlier in this video recording. Now, finally, to apprehend this head on last time in this video. Photons are matter. What do we see of these pictures of photons? They are particles that we can see. Okay? So that's the first clue, and that's the first thing that tells us that photons are matter. The fact that we can see them and they are physical. What is the criteria of matter, you ask? Let's look it up. Let's see if it matches. And what does it say? It says all matter is made of particles that are too small to be seen. This is pretty funny. Everything you can see and touch is made of matter. That's not even true, first of all, since everything you can see and touch is not actually made of matter, according to real science. But these are for some reason, this just seems like it could be a fan-made article or some article written for a really young audience who would have a hard time understanding some of these higher concepts, so they were going easy on them. Let's see what else we can find. Let's see what... touch students to everything they see a touch called matter. American Chemical Society. Okay. Yeah, so never mind. I don't know how popular this website is or how reputable it is, but let's see. Everything you can hold, taste, or smell is made of matter. It's everything you can see. Let's see. According to Wikipedia, it's still, Wikipedia says they still want this idea that somehow matter is not photons. or energy phenomena such as light or heat. That is pretty hilarious. It's pretty ironic, but anyway, let's see. But this article, does it say that all matter can be seen? Let's take a look. All right. Ordinary matter is anything that is made of the same things that atoms or molecules are made of. So, it says it's natural to phrase the definition as that. It says the definition leads to a definition of matter as being quarks and leptons. So ordinary matter is first generation particles, and is the particles that all the particles we can see, because all the atoms and electrons are all the particles we can see. So it's basically giving the equivocations and equivalencies that I was referring to, that many are familiar with, saying that matter, absolutely all matter can be seen. So it's pretty funny, because if all matter can be seen, where was I? If all matter can be seen, then is matter, is it photons? Yes, it is photons, because we can see photons. We see light, and light is photons. Read this article. So we see, we see light all the time. They say that everything that we see is a form of light, and all of that is matter, and they say all of that matter is light. And so, yet they say that you cannot, yet they still say that light is not matter. So it's pretty stupid. They say that everything that you see is stuff that you can't see. It's pretty, they don't even know that that's what they're saying when they're saying it. They are literally saying that light is everywhere, and everything that you see all around you is some kind of photon, some form of photons. And yet they still say none of those things are particles, because they say a photon is not. No, they say that the photons are particles, but what they do mess up at is they still say that those particles are not matter. They say the photon particles you see around you are not matter, yet all the matter you see around you is photon particles, is what they say anyway. So they contradict their own reasoning with that. So there you have it. If you just turn on your light in your room, you see that is something that is matter, because matter is the particles that can be all the particles that you can see. So it must stand to reason that light is matter. But then they say no, light is not matter. They say that photons are not matter, but photons are light. So they are crazy. They're mentally ill. Not just for that, but for the other thing I said about if they think that light is energy, and if they think that E equals mc squared is completely valid in all that it says, when it's not. So I've just debunked 3 major theories in science, going on from a first of atoms versus temperature, which I also proved as a valid theory many times on my channel so far in the past 20 videos. So there you have it. I'm going to do a favor for you guys. I'm going to make separate videos for each of these arguments I presented in this video, after this video is published on my channel, so it's easier to understand for some viewers. But all the arguments are in this video that you are watching. All 3 of those arguments, those groundbreaking, revolutionary arguments in science. I hope you enjoyed, because well, people may have come up with those arguments, some of those arguments before, and I don't think many people have. It does prove my bigger, higher argument on this entire channel. Throughout the entire duration of this channel, I've been arguing that all people in history have been mentally ill. And that's what it really points to being true, and it shows it's true. So there you go. All three of those theories are good proof that all people in history have been mentally ill, taking into all things considered. So I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe. See you next time. Bye.